Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into the Enneagram today, but with a twist.
Oh, a twist.
Yeah, we're going way beyond like those basic personality tests. We're talking map of the soul kind of stuff. And get this, our source is, well, a dragon named Zoran.
A dragon. That's a new one.
I know, right? It's pretty wild.
So we're getting Enneagram wisdom from a dragon. This I gotta hear.
Right. It's fascinating how Zoran, this creature of myth and legend, provides insights into us humans, our psyche.
I'm all ears. Tell me more about this dragon.
Well, he's encountered individuals, like real people, who embody each of the 9 Enneagram types.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he shares these stories with us, which adds a whole new dimension to the Enneagram, I think.
I bet. So what kind of stories does he tell?
One thing that really struck me is he says, even the stars do not shine perfectly. Deep.
Right. And it got me thinking, especially about type 1, the perfectionist.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Those striving for flawlessness, they might have something to learn from a dragon about imperfection. Exactly. I'm really curious to see how Zoran's perspective, a dragon's perspective, can help us understand each type on a much deeper level.
Let's get into it then. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with type 1, the reformer.
Okay, the reformer. Driven by integrity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're always striving for excellence, but it goes deeper than that. It's like this deep-seated fear of being flawed, corrupt even.
So it's not just about wanting things to be right. It's about this inner battle, this inner critic that's constantly pushing them toward, well, an impossible ideal.
That makes you wonder, where does that fear come from? I mean, is it something they're born with, or is it, society, expectations, all that?
Great question. Nature versus nurture, right?
Exactly.
Well, Zoran's stories suggest it can manifest in a lot of different ways.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Well, for example, he met a monk. This monk was dedicated to preserving, these ancient texts. But he was really struggling.
Struggling? How so?
He felt like his work, no matter how hard he tried, it never felt good enough.
Wow. So like the pursuit of perfection became the trap.
Yeah. It's like he was so focused on achieving this impossible standard that he couldn't appreciate the beauty of what he had already created.
Oh, I can see that. It's like the pursuit of flawlessness kind of overshadows the inherent value of the work, right?
Exactly.
So what did Zoran say to this monk? A dragon's advice to a perfectionist monk. I got to hear this.
Well, Zoran, with his dragon wisdom, he told the monk to embrace imperfection as part of life's beauty. He encouraged him to see imperfections not as failures, but as opportunities to grow, to be authentic.
That's a powerful message, especially for someone so fixated on achieving an ideal.
Right.
Makes me wonder if this applies to like all areas of a type 1's life, not just their work.
I think Zoran would say it does. He seems to highlight self-compassion a lot for type 1s.
Self-compassion.
Reminding them it's okay to make mistakes. Real growth comes from accepting our imperfections.
That's a good segue into type 2, the helper, don't you think?
Yeah, good point. Always giving, those type 2s.
Right. I've always admired their selflessness. But you got to wonder, does all that giving, does it ever come at a personal cost?
That's a key point. Their motivation, it comes from this deep need to be loved, appreciated, and they often express that through helping, caring for others tirelessly.
Right.
But it can lead to, well, neglecting their own needs.
Because they're afraid of what? Being unloved?
Yeah, unwanted. It's like their giving nature it's almost like a defense mechanism,
Oh, against potential rejection.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fascinating dynamic.
So Zoran met someone like this, a type 2.
He did. He met a healer, and she was just pouring all her energy into helping others.
To the point where it was detrimental.
Yeah, to the point of, like, depletion. Makes you wonder, if no one needed her help, would she even know her own worth?
That's a tough one. That's a heartbreaking thought. So I'm guessing Zoran had some words of wisdom for her as well.
He did. He reminded her that her worth, it doesn't depend on what she gives to others.
Oh, I like that. He compared her to the moon.
The moon, yeah. Constantly illuminating the night sky, even when, people aren't noticing.
Her light shines because it's her nature, not because it's being acknowledged.
Exactly.
That's such a beautiful way to reframe it.
Right.
It shifts the focus from needing that external validation to recognizing your inherent worth.
Yeah.
I wonder if that message resonates with all type 2s. I mean, learning to set boundaries, recognize their own needs, that must be hard.
It's a common struggle for sure. They define themselves so much through those acts of service, makes it really difficult to prioritize themselves.
Yeah.
Zoran, he seems to emphasize self-care a lot for type 2s.
Makes sense.
You can't truly help others if you're running on empty.
Okay, that makes sense. So moving on to type 3, the achiever.
The achiever, yeah, they're all about that drive, that ambition.
Right. But I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye, as with all the types.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. They thrive on success, recognition, constantly striving to be the best, you know?
But there's a fear there too.
Yeah,
Right?
deep down it's this fear of being seen as a failure, insignificant.
So it's that fear that fuels that relentless pursuit of achievement.
Yeah. It's like they're constantly seeking external validation to quiet that inner fear.
It's like they're always performing for an audience.
Right.
Did Zoran have a story about a type 3?
He did. He encountered this young prince. Now this prince, he had it all. Wealth, power, loyal
It's
followers.
a fairy tale package. You'd think he'd be content, right?
Yeah.
But he felt empty.
Why?
It seemed like achieving one goal, it just led to setting another. This endless cycle of striving, never truly fulfilled.
So, like, he's on a treadmill, constantly running, but not really getting anywhere.
That's a good way to put it.
What did Zoran tell him?
Zoran pointed out that he was so focused on the destination, he wasn't even enjoying the journey.
Oh, I see. He told him to slow down, savor his accomplishments, reconnect with what truly matters beyond all those external markers of success.
It's a good reminder for all of us, I think. The true fulfillment often lies in the process, not just the outcome.
Definitely.
Okay, so type 4, the individualist. What makes them tick?
Type 4s, they're driven by this deep need for authenticity, self-expression.
The artists, the poets, the creatives, right?
Exactly. They have this unique way of experiencing the world, and often they feel this sense of longing, yearning for, something more.
I can relate to that, but it sounds kind of bittersweet.
It can be. See, their fear is being ordinary, insignificant. So this leads to feeling misunderstood, isolated.
Because they're different.
Right. And Zoran met a painter who he beautifully expressed his emotions through his art, but he felt like he could never really capture the full depth of his feelings.
It's like they're chasing this ideal of self-expression that can never be fully realized.
Yeah, it's elusive.
What did Zoran tell him?
Zoran helped him understand that the beauty of his art, it wasn't about perfectly capturing his inner world. It was about the vulnerability of sharing it with others, even if they didn't fully get it.
That's really profound.
Yeah.
So let's move on to type 5, the investigator. They're all about knowledge, right?
Oh, absolutely. Knowledge is their thing. They have this insatiable desire to understand the world, everything around them.
Knowledge is power, right?
That's often how they see it. They're incredibly perceptive, innovative, always digging for information. But, their fear is being overwhelmed or feeling incompetent.
I can see that, so they isolate themselves.
Yeah, they withdraw from the world, almost building walls of information around themselves.
No, it's like knowledge can be empowering, but also a shield.
Exactly.
Right.
Protecting them from feeling inadequate.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
Zoran met this scholar, dedicated his whole life to studying ancient texts, unlocking the secrets of the universe.
Wow.
But despite all his knowledge, he felt empty, isolated.
So it's like he was accumulating knowledge, but not truly experiencing life.
Right. It's like all that information overshadowed his ability to connect, share his discoveries with the world.
So what did Zoran tell him?
Zoran reminded him that knowledge, it's a treasure,
It is.
but its true power lies in sharing it with others, finding a balance, between intellectual pursuits and human connection.
That's a good reminder for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
It's not just about what you know, but about using that knowledge to connect, to make a difference in the world.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about type 6, the loyalist. The dependable ones.
Yes. They're all about security and support. They really thrive in structured environments.
Where they feel safe.
Exactly. Where they can rely on others. They value loyalty, commitment above all else.
Admirable qualities.
But their fear of the unknown, that can create some challenges, especially in a world that's constantly changing.
Right. They need to know what to expect.
Yeah.
So what happens when they're faced with uncertainty?
Well, they fear being without support, guidance. And this fear can lead to anxiety, indecision.
Makes sense.
They overthink things, second guess themselves, or maybe rely too heavily on others for reassurance.
So it's like their need for security can actually hold them back from taking risks or trusting their own judgment.
Right. Zoran met this young woman. She was so devoted to her family and community, incredibly loyal, helpful,
But
but constantly anxious.
what was she so anxious about?
She was so focused on what could go wrong, she couldn't enjoy the present moment.
Oh, I see. Like she was living in a constant state of fear, always anticipating the worst-case scenario.
Yeah. And Zoran reminded her that while loyalty is important, it shouldn't come at the expense of her own peace of mind.
Right.
He encouraged her to face her fears, with courage and trust her own abilities.
So true strength comes from facing our fears, not avoiding them.
Well said.
We've covered a lot, but we still have a few more types to go. What about type 7, the enthusiast? The life of the party.
Oh, yeah. Always up for an adventure. Type 7s are known for their spontaneity, their optimism, zest for life.
It's infectious, their energy.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, does their constant need for stimulation, does it ever mask something deeper?
That's a good observation. Zoran, he encountered a young woman, always on the go, flitting from one adventure to the next.
Sounds fun.
Right. But underneath all that exuberance, he sensed this fear of stillness.
Fear of stillness. What do you mean?
A fear of confronting those deeper, more challenging aspects of life.
So it's like the constant excitement is a way to distract themselves.
They're facing their own emotions, yeah. They're running toward pleasure, but also running from something.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Zoran helped her understand that true joy, it doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from embracing, well, the whole spectrum of life.
The good, the bad, the light, and the dark.
Exactly.
So type 8, the challenger. They're the ones who always take charge, right?
Oh, type 8s, they're driven by a need for control, a desire to protect themselves and those they care about.
Natural leaders.
Yeah, assertive, decisive, not afraid to challenge the status quo or fight for what they believe in.
Their confidence can be really inspiring, but I imagine that intensity can also be intimidating.
It can be, especially if it's coming from a place of fear.
Oh, what do they fear?
They fear being controlled or harmed. And this fear, it can lead to, well, becoming domineering, aggressive even.
Oh, okay, so it's a defense mechanism.
Yeah, they might push people away, create conflict as a way to assert their power, protect themselves from being vulnerable.
So their strength is both a source of power and a way to keep people at a distance.
Right. Zoran met a powerful warrior who he was fearless in battle, fiercely protective of his people, but he couldn't let anyone get close. He saw vulnerability as weakness and pushed away anyone who tried to connect with him on a deeper level.
Sounds kind of lonely, even for a warrior.
Yeah, it was.
So what did Zoran tell him?
Zoran helped him understand that true strength, it doesn't just come from physical power. It comes from the courage to be vulnerable, to let others in.
To let his guard down.
Exactly. And that allowing himself to be seen, loved, it wouldn't diminish his power. It would actually make him stronger.
That's a powerful message.
Right.
That true strength lies in embracing our whole selves, not just the parts we want to show the world. All right, finally, let's talk about type 9, the peacemaker.
Ah, the peacemaker.
Yeah.
Always bringing harmony to every situation.
Right. They're the easygoing ones, the ones who just want everyone to get along.
They have this calming presence. They can see all sides of a situation.
That sounds lovely.
Their core desire is peace, unity within themselves and in their relationships.
But is there a downside to always seeking peace and harmony?
There can be. They fear loss, separation, and this fear can lead to suppressing their own needs, desires, to avoid conflict.
So it's like their desire for peace can sometimes come at the expense of their own authenticity?
Yeah. Striving for outer harmony, but sometimes there's inner dissonance.
Did Zoran encounter a type 9 who was like this?
He met this woman. She was known for her ability to mediate disputes, bring people together.
Sounds like a valuable skill.
Oh, yeah. But she struggled to express her own opinions, to take a stand for what she truly believed in.
So she was silencing her own voice to keep the peace.
It seemed that way.
What did Zoran tell her?
He reminded her that true peace, it doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from finding a way to hold space for different viewpoints and expressing your own truth with compassion and understanding.
So it's not about suppressing your own needs. It's about finding a way to express them in a way that doesn't create more conflict.
Right. He encouraged her to embrace her voice. Expressing her needs and desires, it wouldn't disrupt the peace. It would actually create a more authentic and fulfilling life for her and those around her.
It's a beautiful message that true peace starts within ourselves.
Exactly. With the acceptance and expression of our true selves.
And it kind of highlights that interconnectedness of all the types, right?
Yeah. Even though we have our own unique patterns, tendencies, we're all striving for the same things: connection, authenticity, belonging.
That's a good point.
Hmm.
So we've gone through each of the 9 types. We've talked about their fears, their motivations. Where do we go from here?
Well, we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
I'm ready. What else is there?
We need to delve deeper into those triads. Remember those? And wings and arrows. Oh, the arrows. They add even more depth to our understanding of the Enneagram. It gets really fascinating. So the Enneagram, it's more than just like, oh, here's your number. That's it.
Right, right. It's a framework, right, for understanding how all these different energies, how they interact.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating.
Okay, I'm ready to explore some of those connections. We touched on triads earlier.
Triads, yeah.
Those groupings of types, based on their core uh, emotional centers: heart, head, body.
Right, right.
Can you break down how those work again?
Of course. Think of them, the triads, like lenses, lenses through which we view and interact with the world.
Okay, I like that. Lenses.
So the heart types, those are types 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
They're driven by their emotions, that need for connection.
Oh, the feelers.
Yeah, you could say that. They're sensitive to the emotional tone of situations.
Right.
And often prioritize relationships above all else.
So that intense focus on emotions, can that ever be a problem?
Oh, absolutely. It's a strength. Their empathy, capacity for connection, but it can lead to challenges too.
Oh, like what?
Well, they might struggle with boundaries, become overly dependent on external validation,
Right.
or lose sight of their own needs, trying to please everyone else.
So it's like their strength can also be their weakness if they're not
True,
careful.
It's a delicate balance.
What about the head types? How do they approach the world?
The head types, that's types 5, 6, and 7. They lead with their intellect. It's all about information, security, planning.
Oh, so they're the thinkers, the strategists, always analyzing, trying to figure things out.
That's a good way to put it. They like to have a plan.
But does all that thinking ever, backfire on them?
It can. Their ability to think critically, plan ahead, it's valuable, but it can also lead to anxiety and indecision.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And they might withdraw from the world, get stuck in their heads, overanalyzing everything.
Right. Paralyzed by all the possibilities.
Yeah, sometimes their strength, their intellect, it becomes a barrier.
Interesting. Okay, so what about the body types? How are they different?
Body types, that's 8, 9, and 1.
All right.
They're grounded, in their physical presence and their need to assert themselves in the world.
Oh.
They're action-oriented, instinctual. They want to have an impact, make things happen.
They're the doers, the ones who just get stuff done.
Yeah, you could say that.
But does that assertive nature ever lead to conflict?
Well, it can. Their strength, their decisiveness, those are valuable traits. But they can also become, domineering, overly assertive.
I see.
Maybe even resistant to vulnerability.
Right.
They might struggle with expressing their emotions or seeing other people's perspectives.
So each triad, it's like it has its own set of strengths and weaknesses.
Right. It's like different sides of the same coin.
Did Zoran, did he have any insights into the role of triads?
He did. He emphasized that each one is, essential for a balanced life.
Okay.
He compared them to the elements of nature, earth, air, fire.
I like that.
Just as the elements, they interact, they balance each other, so do these triads, representing different aspects of our being.
Oh, that's a beautiful analogy. It highlights the importance of recognizing and appreciating the different ways people approach the world.
Right.
We can all learn from each other's strengths.
Absolutely. For example, someone who really identifies with the heart triad, they might benefit from, incorporating some of that grounded, action-oriented energy of the body types.
Oh, that's interesting.
And someone from the head triad, maybe they could find more balance by connecting to the emotional intelligence, the relational strengths of the heart types.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, that integration.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's triads. Let's dive into wings.
Wings.
Can you remind us how those work?
Wings, think of them as secondary influences.
Secondary influences.
Yeah, they add nuance to your core type. So each person, they have a wing, which is one of the 2 types next to yours on the Enneagram circle.
Okay, so you're influenced by the types next door, so to speak.
Exactly. And these wings, they influence how you express your core type, adding layers of complexity to your personality.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this explains why people with the same Enneagram type, they can still be so different.
Right.
Can you give us like a specific example of how this might play out?
Sure. Let's take type 4, the individualist. If their wing is type 3, the achiever,
Okay.
they'll likely be more outwardly focused, more driven to achieve success in their creative pursuits.
So they're not just content with expressing themselves for
Well,
themselves.
they want to make an impact on the world.
They've got that drive.
Exactly. Combining that need for authenticity with a desire for accomplishment.
Okay.
On the other hand, a type 4 with a type 5 wing, the investigator.
Okay.
They might be more introspective, more focused on exploring their inner world, through solitary pursuits.
So they're more inward focused.
Yeah, they might express themselves through writing, art, music, but their main motivation is to understand themselves better, not necessarily to share their work with others.
Oh, that makes sense. So wings, it really do add like a whole other dimension to the Enneagram.
You do.
It's not just about your core type. It's about that interplay between your core type and your wing.
Right. And it creates a much more complete picture of your personality.
Right, right. And I imagine each wing combination, it presents its own unique set of challenges and opportunities.
It does. For example, a type 4 with a 3 wing, they might struggle with balancing that need for authenticity with wanting external validation. While a type 4 with a 5 wing, they might have trouble connecting with others or sharing their work with the world.
Each wing combination comes with its own baggage, so to speak.
You say that.
Okay, let's talk about arrows, the paths of growth and stress.
Arrows, yeah. They're fascinating.
I'm still a little fuzzy on how those work, to be honest.
Okay, so the arrows, they show how our personality can, shift.
Shift.
Yeah, not permanently change, but shift under stress or when we're, seeking growth.
Okay.
It's like tapping into the energy of another type.
Of another type.
Yeah, either in a healthy way when we're evolving or in an unhealthy way when we're, under pressure.
So it's not about becoming a different type, but like accessing different aspects of ourselves depending on the circumstances.
Exactly. Like you have this hidden toolkit, of resources that you can draw upon when you need them.
I like that. A hidden toolkit.
For example, let's consider type 9, the peacemaker.
Okay.
When they're moving towards growth, they might tap into the assertive energy of type 3, the achiever.
Wait, really? Because type 9s are all about harmony, avoiding conflict.
Right. But when they're growing, they might start asserting themselves more, setting boundaries, taking action to achieve their goals.
Okay, so it's like they're stepping out of their comfort zone, becoming more proactive.
Exactly. But then, under stress, a type 9 might move toward the unhealthy aspects of type 6, the loyalist.
The loyalist, okay.
Becoming more anxious, fearful, seeking reassurance, support from others.
So they lose that sense of inner peace and kind of become more dependent on others.
Right.
So understanding these arrows, it's crucial for navigating those shifts in a healthy way.
Absolutely. When you're aware of your arrows, you can start to recognize the patterns in your behavior. You can see when you're moving in a healthy direction and when you're slipping into those unhealthy patterns.
So it's like having a roadmap for personal growth.
Exactly. You can anticipate the pitfalls, prepare yourself to navigate those challenges in a more constructive way.
Right, right.
The Enneagram gives us a framework for understanding those deeper patterns within ourselves.
It's like a guide.
Yeah. It's up to us to do the work, the self-discovery, and apply that knowledge to our lives.
Right, right. And Zoran, through his stories, he encourages us to embrace this journey of growth and transformation.
He does.
It's not just about, identifying your type. It's about using that knowledge to become more self-aware, more compassionate, more integrated. So we've explored the triads, the wings, the arrows. But how do we actually apply this knowledge to our lives? What kind of practical guidance does Zoran offer for each type?
Well, that's what we'll get into next. Zoran's advice, it's all about embracing our strengths, working through those challenges, and ultimately becoming the best versions of ourselves.
So much to unpack.
Yeah.
It's amazing how Zoran, a dragon, ties all this together.
Right. He really does offer a unique perspective.
And practical too, right? Like how do we actually use this Enneagram stuff in our everyday lives?
That's the key question, isn't it? Zoran's advice, it's all about, well, embracing those strengths we've been talking about, working through our challenges, and ultimately becoming, the best versions of ourselves.
Right. And that's a journey, right? Not a destination.
Exactly. Personal growth, it's ongoing. Zoran reminds us of that a lot.
So where do we even begin?
Well, let's start with type 1, the reformers.
Okay. Type 1.
Zoran really emphasizes letting go of perfectionism, practicing self-compassion, embracing those imperfections, and finding joy in the process, not just the outcome.
That's got to be tough for a type 1, right? Like their whole identity is striving for excellence, upholding those high standards.
It's definitely a process, but Zoran reminds them that true integrity, it doesn't come from being flawless. It comes from being honest about our imperfections, striving to do better.
So it's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
between striving for excellence and accepting themselves as they are.
Right.
What about type 2s, the helpers?
Type 2s, Zoran's advice for them, it centers around setting boundaries.
Boundaries, okay.
And prioritizing self-care, reminding them that they can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
Taking care of their own needs, it's essential if they really want to help others.
I can see that.
He encourages them to learn to say no without feeling guilty and to practice receiving love and support, not just giving it.
That's got to be hard for them,
Yeah.
right? To shift that focus from giving to receiving.
It can be. They're so used to defining themselves through, acts of service that receiving, it feels uncomfortable, almost selfish,
Right.
But Zoran reminds them receiving, it's just as important as giving. And allowing others to care for them, it strengthens relationships, creates a more balanced flow of energy.
Well, that's a nice way to put it. It's not about being self-centered. It's about recognizing that connection, real connection. It requires both.
Yeah.
Giving and receiving.
Exactly.
Okay. Type 3 is the achievers. What guidance does Zoran offer them?
Type 3s, he encourages them to slow down, to connect with their authentic selves and redefine success on their own terms.
Oh, that's interesting.
Wow.
Because they're so driven by success.
Yeah.
Recognition.
Right. It's almost like asking them to step off that treadmill,
Right.
and question everything they've been striving for. But Zoran emphasizes that true fulfillment, it doesn't come from external achievements. It comes from aligning with our true selves.
So finding fulfillment from within.
Yeah, rather than seeking validation from the outside world, he encourages them to explore their motivations, ask themselves why they're pursuing certain goals, and to consider what truly brings them joy and satisfaction.
Okay. So type 4s, the individualists.
Zoran's advice for type 4s, it focuses on embracing the beauty of the present moment.
Okay.
And finding gratitude for what they have, rather than dwelling on what's missing.
Oh, that's so important for them, right? Because they can get so caught up in that longing, that yearning for something more,
Yeah.
that they miss out on what's right in front of them.
Exactly. Zoran encourages them to shift their focus from longing to appreciation, to savor the richness of their inner world and the unique perspectives they bring to the world. He reminds them that their sensitivity, their depth of feeling, those are strengths, not weaknesses. And that their ability to experience life so intensely, it's a gift.
Type 5s, the investigators. How can they connect more fully with the world?
Zoran encourages type 5s to share their knowledge and to connect with others on a deeper level.
Okay.
He reminds them that knowledge, it's meant to be shared, and that true wisdom, it doesn't just come from accumulating information, it comes from applying it to the world.
I see.
Making a difference.
Right, but that's got to be hard for them, right? Because they're so comfortable in their own heads.
Yeah.
In the world of ideas.
It's a big step for them to come out of their sanctuary and engage with, the messiness of human interaction.
Right. But Zoran encourages them to do that, to find a way to bridge that gap between their intellectual pursuits and their human connections.
He does. He reminds them they have valuable insights to offer the world, and that their unique perspective, it can make a real difference.
Type 6s, the loyalists.
Type 6s, Zoran's advice for them, it focuses on building self-trust, and facing those fears.
Okay.
He reminds them that they're stronger than they think and encourages them to step outside their comfort zone, to take risks, and to trust their own judgment.
That's huge for them, right? Because they're always looking for that security, that reassurance.
They are. But Zoran reminds them that true security, it comes from within, not from external sources.
Right.
He tells them, you have the resources, the resilience to navigate life's challenges, even when things feel uncertain.
Type 7s, the enthusiasts. What does Zoran have to say to them?
For type 7s, he encourages them to find depth and meaning beyond just, the pursuit of pleasure,
Okay.
and to embrace, the full spectrum of human experience,
Wow.
including those more challenging emotions.
So he's challenging them to slow down, to go deeper.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of counterintuitive to their nature.
It is, but Zoran reminds them that true joy, it doesn't just come from chasing, fleeting experiences. It comes from cultivating a deep sense of contentment, inner peace.
Right.
He encourages them to explore their inner landscape, to connect with their emotions, and to find joy in the simple things.
Type 8, the challenger.
Zoran's guidance for type 8s, it focuses on cultivating vulnerability.
Yeah.
And learning to trust others.
Wow.
He encourages them to soften their edges, to practice empathy, compassion, and to find strength in connection, not just control.
That's a lot to ask of a type 8. They're
Yeah.
so used to being in charge, being the strong ones.
It is. But Zoran reminds them that true strength, it doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from allowing themselves to be seen, to be loved for who they truly are.
Okay. And finally, type 9, the peacemaker.
For type 9s, Zoran emphasizes asserting themselves, and finding their voice. He encourages them to set boundaries, to express their needs and desires.
To stand up for themselves.
Yeah, to embrace their own power.
Because they're so good at accommodating others that they often lose themselves in the process.
Exactly. Zoran reminds them that their opinions, their desires, they matter. And that true peace, it doesn't come from avoiding conflict. It comes from finding a way to authentically express themselves while still respecting the needs of others.
This has been incredible. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. Zoran's stories, they've really brought the Enneagram to life in a whole new way.
Absolutely. And his parting words, there's something we can all think about, What is your unique gift to the universe?
That's a great question. It really makes you think about your strengths, your passions, and how we can use them to make a difference in the world.
He reminds us that we all have something special to offer, no matter what our Enneagram type is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Enneagram. We encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, keep growing, and until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep embracing that journey of self-discovery.